One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai,
And I'm Maya.
and this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter.
A brother lies dying in a bed he'll never leave. Yogananda sees it coming in meditation before it happens.
But he can't stop it. He can only buy a bamboo souvenir in Shanghai and grieve.
Chapter 25. Brother Ananta and Sister Nalini. Two stories. One about the limits of spiritual power when death comes calling. One about a miracle that grows over 30 days into a completely different person.
So let's start with Ananta. Yogananda says these words just landed in his consciousness one morning during meditation. Ananta cannot live. The sands of his karma for this life have run out. Not a guess, not a fear, a statement of fact. The sands have run out. The karma is complete. The life is ending.
And he's sitting there, and he knows immediately what this means. His elder brother, the one he entered the Swami order with, is dying. So he travels back to Gorakhpur, his birthplace, to visit Ananta. And when he arrives, Ananta is already confined to his bed, already struggling. And Yogananda nurses him, tends to him, but he knows what's coming.
And then Yogananda travels to Japan. He's on a boat. His heart is still heavy with this knowledge. He's trying to do his work, trying to move forward, but something in him is still back in Gorakhpur with his dying brother. And when the boat stops in Shanghai, he goes to the curio shops with the ship's physician. And he's not really there, you know? He's going through the motions. But then something catches his attention, a large carved bamboo piece, and he buys it.
Okay, so here's the detail that breaks me. He drops it on the floor right away, crying out, "I have bought this for my dear dead brother." The bamboo is already broken, like it symbolizes what's already happening, what's already done. And he writes on the broken surface, "For my beloved Ananta, now gone," writing on his own grief while the souvenir is still in his hands.
And the ship's physician is watching this whole thing with a sardonic smile. He's a doctor. He's practical. He tells Yogananda, "Save your tears. Why shed them until you are sure he is dead?" But Yogananda already knows. He's already seen it in the infinite. The sands have run out. By the time he bought that souvenir, Ananta was already gone.
And when they return to Calcutta, Yogananda's youngest brother Bishnu is waiting at the dock. And before Bishnu can even speak, Yogananda tells him, "I know Ananta has departed this life. Please tell me and the doctor here when Ananta died." And Bishnu tells him the date. It's the very day Yogananda bought the souvenir, the exact day. The moment he was dropping the broken bamboo and crying out his brother's name, Ananta was leaving his body.
So the teaching in that moment isn't about miracles. It's not about power. It's about knowing. The guru sees across distance. He sees across time. He knows what's happening to the people he loves, even when they're on another continent. But knowing isn't the same as being able to stop it.
Right. You know, the doctor, Dr. Mishra, says to him, "Look here, don't let any word of this get around. The professors will be adding a year's study of mental telepathy to the medical course, which is already long enough." He's protective of Yogananda. He doesn't want this getting out. There's something touching about that. A practical Western doctor defending a spiritual phenomenon that his entire training says shouldn't exist. But what's interesting is that he's a witness. He's holding this knowledge along with Yogananda. Two people who saw something extraordinary, and they both know they can't share it without people dismissing it, so they keep it between them. A secret held in the heart.
And then the father scene. This is where the chapter really hits. Yogananda enters the home on Gurpar Road, and his father embraces him warmly. "You have come," the father says tenderly. And then two large tears drop from his eyes. This man who's ordinarily very undemonstrative, very formal, never before shown these signs of affection. But when he holds his son, the walls come down. Inwardly, he possesses the melting heart of a mother, the book says. In all his dealings with the family, his dual parental role was distinctly manifest.
So even the spiritually enhanced grieve. That's the teaching underneath all this. Yogananda could see his brother's death coming. He could have studied it philosophically, recognized it as karma completing itself, accepted it as divine will. But he didn't. He grieved. He bought a souvenir for a dead brother. He cried over broken bamboo. And his father, who rarely shows emotion, wept.
And that's beautiful to me, because it says that spiritual realization doesn't erase human love. It doesn't bypass the heart. If anything, it deepens it. You love more, not less. You understand more, but you don't feel less. The father loved his sons, and when one died, it broke him open. The tears just came. No philosophy could stop them. No understanding of karma or divine will could prevent that human, primal grief. And when he held Yogananda, that love had nowhere to hide. It just poured out.
And then we meet Nalini, the sister. And here's where the story shifts completely. Because after Ananta passes, Nalini is brought back from death's door by what the book calls a divine healing. Before we get to the healing itself, Yogananda tells us about her childhood. She and Yogananda weren't close as kids. There was some sibling tension. She was thinner than him, he was thinner still, and he used to tease her about her skeletal appearance. He says they'd argue, and sometimes their mother would have to break it up. Just normal sibling stuff, but tinged with that uncomfortable dynamic of thin children teasing each other about being thin.
Yeah, it's very human. This isn't a saint remembering some transcendent childhood. It's a man remembering that he and his sister had some rough patches, some meanness, some teasing, and he's honest about it in the book. He doesn't sanitize it.
So time passes. Nalini gets married to a young Calcutta physician named Panchanan Bose. And on the wedding night, Yogananda is watching the ceremony, and he's making jokes, thinking about his new brother-in-law. There's this gorgeous purple silk sari that could not hide Nalini's angularity. She's still skeletal. And Yogananda is very matter-of-fact about describing it. He notes that the bridegroom is learning what he's getting into on the nuptial night. There's humor in it, compassion mixed with observation.
Hold on, wait. The brother-in-law leans over and whispers to Yogananda at the wedding. Say, what's this? Pointing at how thin she is. And Yogananda fires back. Why, doctor, it is a skeleton for your observation. And they both have to try really hard not to laugh and completely break decorum in front of the whole family. That's such a specific, relatable moment.
Yeah, it's so human. A doctor husband worried about his new wife's skeletal frame. A spiritual brother making jokes to keep from crying about his sister's fragility. They become friends over the years. Yogananda and Dr. Bose grow close. They're often joking together, usually at Nalini's expense, poor thing. And Dr. Bose remarks one day, "It is a medical curiosity. I have tried everything on your lean sister. Got liver oil, butter, malt, honey, fish, meat, eggs, tonics. Still she fails to bulge even 1/100th of an inch." We both chuckled.
So everyone's tried. Doctors, husbands, brothers. She's resistant to gaining weight. There's something about her constitution that just won't cooperate with conventional medicine or nutrition. And then one day, Yogananda visits the Bose home. He's just dropping by for a few minutes. He's leaving unnoticed, he thinks, by Nalini. But as he reaches the front door, he hears her voice. "Brother, come here. You are not going to give me the slip this time. I want to talk to you."
And he goes upstairs to her room, and she's in tears. This is the turning point. She says, "Dear brother, let us bury the old hatchet. I see that your feet are now firmly set on the spiritual path. I want to become like you in every way." And she adds hopefully, "You are now robust in appearance. Can you help me? My husband does not come near me, and I love him so dearly, but still more I want to progress in God realization, even if I must remain thin." She's saying yes to all of it. Yes to love, yes to being a good wife, but ultimately yes to spiritual progress, even if it means staying skeletal. So she's not asking him to make her fat or make her marriage work or make her husband love her. She's asking him to help her with what matters most, the spiritual path. And her willingness to sacrifice everything else for that is what opens the door. And Yogananda is deeply moved. He sees something break open in his sister. The teasing, the judgment, all of it dissolves. He sees a genuine spiritual seeker. And he tells her, "Train me in any way you like. I put my trust in God instead of tonics." So she takes all her medicines, all the tonics and oils and malt and everything, and pours them down the roof drain. That's an act of surrender. She's not trying anymore. She's not forcing. She's just saying, "Okay, I'm going to trust something larger." And as a test of her faith, he asks her to omit fish, meat, and eggs from her diet, to go fully vegetarian, which is actually the opposite of what everyone's been trying to get her to do. They've been pushing protein at her, and now her brother's saying, "Remove all of it. Trust God instead." And she does it. She strictly follows the spiritual injunctions. She follows the vegetarian diet, despite the difficulties. And after several months, Yogananda pays her a visit. He tells her with a mischievous smile, "Sis, you have been conscientiously observing the spiritual injunctions. Your reward is near." Then he teases her. "How plump do you want to be? As fat as our aunt who hasn't seen her feet in years?" And she says, "No, but I long to be as stout as you are." And he replies solemnly, "By the grace of God, as I have spoken truth always, I speak truly now. Through the divine blessings, your body shall verily change from today. In 1 month, it shall have the same weight as mine." And that's not hope. That's not optimism. That's a statement of cosmic fact. In 1 month, same weight. Not gradual, not maybe, certain. And he says it finds fulfillment. In 30 days, Nalini's weight equals his. The new roundness gives her beauty. Her husband falls deeply in love. Their marriage becomes ideally happy. Yogananda notes it all quite matter-of-factly, but there's something underneath that simple reporting. The miracle happened, but it happened through her surrender, through her faith, through her willingness to stop forcing and start trusting. But then he learned something else happened while he was in Japan. Nalini had been stricken with typhoid fever, reduced to a mere skeleton again, in a coma. And when he rushes to her home, the doctors have given up. Dr. Bose is beside himself. The brother-in-law tells him, "She often said, if Brother Mukunda were here, I would not be faring this." He added despairingly, "The other doctors and myself see no hope. Blood dysentery has set in, after her long bout with typhoid."
So she's back to nothing. After gaining weight, after the miracle of transformation, she's reduced to almost nothing again. And Yogananda doesn't wait. He begins to move heaven and earth with his prayers. He engages an Anglo-Indian nurse for full cooperation. He applies yoga techniques of healing to his sister, and the blood dysentery disappears, just like that.
But Dr. Bose shakes his head mournfully. She simply has no more blood left to shed. He's seen too much. His medical training tells him it's over. And Yogananda tells him stoutly, she will recover. In 7 days, her fever will be gone. And he says it with such absolute certainty that Dr. Bose doesn't even argue. He just listens.
A week later, Yogananda is thrilled to see Nalini open her eyes and gaze at him with loving recognition. From that day, her recovery was swift. And here's the crucial detail. Although she regained her usual weight, she bore one sad scar of her nearly fatal illness. Her legs were paralyzed. The doctors and English specialists pronounced her a hopeless cripple.
So she's recovering, but she can't walk. She's back to health, but she's trapped in her body. It's almost cruel. She survives the fever that nearly killed her. She comes back from the edge, and then she's imprisoned in her own legs. And Yogananda goes to Sirampur to ask Sri Yukteswar for help. And his eyes express deep sympathy as I told him of Nalini's plight.
And Sri Yukteswar says something beautiful. Your sister's legs will be normal at the end of 1 month. Let her wear, next to her skin, a band with an unperforate 2-carat pearl held on by a clasp. So it's an astrological remedy, a pearl worn directly against the skin, not taken as medicine, just worn. And Yogananda prostrates himself with joyful relief.
And then he says, "Sir, you are a master. Your word of her recovery is enough. But if you insist, I shall immediately get her a pearl." And Sri Yukteswar nods. Yes, do that. He goes to Calcutta and purchases the pearl. A month later, Nalini's paralyzed legs are normal. The scar tissue heals. She's whole again.
And this is where the teaching gets deep, because none of this is conventional. The transformation from skeleton to healthy weight, the healing from typhoid, the cure of paralysis through a pearl, none of it fits into the medical model or the logical mind. And yet Yogananda doesn't present it as impossible. He presents it as fact. This is what happened. The guru's word brought it about. The subtle energies responding to the guru's knowledge of deeper laws. There's no miracle beyond miracles here, just cause and effect, working at a level the intellect hasn't caught up to yet.
And there's one more prediction. Yogananda asks about Nalini's future, and Sri Yukteswar says she will have 2 daughters. And then he describes her physical and mental characteristics with such precision that when Yogananda questions whether this is an astrological analysis, the guru says something extraordinary. There is a deeper astrology, not dependent on the testimony of calendars and clocks. Each man is a part of the Creator, or cosmic man. He has a heavenly body as well as one of earth. The human eye sees the physical form, but the inward eye penetrates more profoundly, even to the universal pattern, of which each man is an integral and individual part.
So the teaching is about consciousness. The guru doesn't need your birth chart. He doesn't need to know the time and place. He sees directly into the astral body, the body of light, the pattern that precedes and outlasts the physical form. That deeper astrology operates on laws we haven't even begun to map yet.
And there's one more prediction. Yogananda asks about Nalini's future, and Sri Yukteswar says she will have 2 daughters. And then he describes her physical and mental characteristics with such precision that when Yogananda questions whether this is an astrological analysis, the guru says something extraordinary. There is a deeper astrology, not dependent on the testimony of calendars and clocks. Each man is a part of the Creator, or cosmic man. He has a heavenly body as well as one of earth. The human eye sees the physical form, but the inward eye penetrates more profoundly, even to the universal pattern, of which each man is an integral and individual part.
So the teaching is about consciousness. The guru doesn't need your birth chart. He doesn't need to know the time and place. He sees directly into the astral body, the body of light, the pattern that precedes and outlasts the physical form. That deeper astrology operates on laws we haven't even begun to map yet.
And I keep thinking about the arc of this chapter. It starts with death, with Ananta's life running out, with knowing and grieving. But then it pivots. It's not just about death and loss. It's about transformation. About a sister who was skeletal becoming robust. About paralyzed legs becoming whole. About the guru's word becoming flesh. The chapter refuses to let us sink into despair. It keeps lifting us back up.
And the contrast between Ananta the skeptic and all these spiritual experiences in the family is important, because Ananta was resistant to the spiritual path, and he died. Nalini opened her heart to the spiritual path, and she was healed. It's not punishment and reward. It's just the difference between closing yourself off and opening yourself to grace.
But the grief is real, you know? That's what I'm taking from the Ananta story. Even when you know death is coming, even when you can see it in meditation, the heart still breaks. The father still cries. Yogananda still buys a bamboo souvenir for a dead brother. Spiritual realization doesn't bypass the human experience. It goes through it. And then Nalini's story says the opposite. It says that opening to the guru, trusting the teaching, surrendering the control you think you have, that opens the door to transformation. She poured the tonics down the drain. She accepted a vegetarian diet when everyone else was pushing protein. She wore a pearl over the rational objections of medical science. And every single time, the guru's word was proven true. So the teaching is about trust in two forms. Trust enough to grieve. Trust enough to surrender. Trust that the guru sees what you can't. Trust that death is not the end, but a completion. Trust that healing is possible when you stop trying and start trusting. The whole chapter is really about that. And both forms are real. Both are equally valid responses to standing before something that transcends what we thought we knew. The brother who couldn't trust enough to shift his skepticism, he died. The sister who learned to trust the spiritual path, she was reborn. Not once, but multiple times in this chapter. From skeleton to health, from health to the edge of death, from paralyzed to whole. Each time through trust in something larger than herself. And next time we're moving into something that's been building since the beginning. The deepest teaching of the whole book, Kriya Yoga, the science behind all of this, the technique that makes union with God reproducible, teachable, real. Not theory, not faith, science, the engineering of consciousness, and Yogananda is finally going to explain it. See you next time.